On August 29th, Ben Hansen broke an incredible story with initially a tweet and then a video. His opening tweet states, "Breaking now, retired F-18 pilot flying a Gulfstream on 8/18 encounters red, rapidly flashing UAPs pacing his aircraft for 15 minutes at Mach 0.87, circling and crossing over top at over 50,000 feet plus. Los Angeles Air Traffic Control, radar tape and radio with video from inside the cockpit." I've watched his video presentation several times, and I've put a link in the description to it, which goes into his story in much greater depth than I do. I'm actually pretty hard to impress when it comes to stories like these, but this one seems promising, and my gut tells me it will be an important story moving forward. The pilot that encountered the UAP is a retired F-18 pilot from the Marine Corps. He has 20 plus years experience of flying F-18s as well as Black Hawk helicopters. He also has a plethora of certification licenses. On August 18th, he was flying for a private client from Miami Executive Airport headed to Maui, Hawaii. Within the airspace of Los Angeles and off the coast, flying at 560 knots in a Gulfstream 650, he notices a group of 2 to 3 lights, red in color. While he describes them as red, they almost take on a pinkish purplish tint. Ben Hansen explains that might just be because of the phone that was used to film them and how it was filmed. And I'll show a portion of one of the videos from this UAP encounter a little later. According to the pilot, these lights trailed his aircraft for about 15 minutes while he was flying at an altitude of 47,000 feet. The pilot estimates they were 5,000 to 10,000 feet above his aircraft while trailing him, which comes to 52,000 to 57,000 feet in altitude. A quote from his video. Now, the Gulfstream 650 has a service ceiling of about 51,000 feet. So being a military pilot, he told me that it's very unlikely that the jets that do fly higher than that would be like your U-2's SR-71, which he says does still fly every now and then, but it would take a tremendous turning radius, kind of like a whole state and width to be able to turn around because of the speeds that they have to fly at those altitudes. But these things were doing circles. Okay, they're kind of orbiting around each other. I later asked him, is it possible it was one solid structure and that they weren't really orbiting, but these very quickly flashing lights were maybe part of a structure that just was in a circular pattern? And he said, well, maybe, except that while he's watching these, a fifth light shows up. The object descends, and he was hesitant to say this, but he said it looked like a shooting star. It comes down, joins the other 4 lights, and they're doing these circle patterns. They move from the right of his aircraft and above him to almost directly in front of him and then pass over the top of his plane. So where he can't see looking at the cockpit, can't see them anymore. And then they move back to the right. So they didn't ever go completely right to left in front of him, but at some point they're almost directly in front of him. Tyler Rogoway, who is the creator, editor-in-chief of the Warzone, had the following to say about this breaking story. Citing Ben Hansen's opening tweet where he announces this breaking story, Tyler Rogoway writes, "This is a cool report, but a few things need correction addition. The biggest is, 1. F-22s operate exactly at that altitude window, even above 60,000 feet, and can turn relatively well, loiter up there. 2. The Southern California range area has been very active. 3. Military tactical jets don't show on FR-24. Those are just initial points. I need to take a better look through this tomorrow. Also, secret flight test activities occur out there beyond more standard test training. At 60,000 feet, you are no threat to air traffic and stealth will not be seen by ATC, airspace restriction. And alt blocks are another issue here, but there is some weird precedent with that. Maybe can discuss more tomorrow. Just some stuff to consider. Nothing conclusive to what this was." One of the immediate skeptical takes is that what was perceived by the pilot was nothing more than a reflection of something flashing on the windscreen from inside the cockpit. This hypothesis seems very unlikely since the air traffic controllers took the initiative to get in touch with the pilot after he landed to inform him that it wasn't just him who saw these weird lights at above 47,000 feet, but was also, to the best of his recollection, a United and Delta flight as well, and that the pilots of those flights didn't want to report it over the radio. Under Ben Hansen's initial tweet, where he announces the breaking news, Kevin Marchetti on Twitter writes, "Appears to me like a reflection of something flashing within the cockpit." Ben Hansen responds, "The Gulfstream 650 is considered a dark cockpit. The pilot explained that if anything is flashing, then it means there is a warning or malfunction. More importantly, the lights were seen moving from the right to the front, to over the plane, and other pilots reported them." Talking with the air traffic controller, the pilot was informed that they don't have any hot airspace, meaning there's no military activity planned or we've been warned of in the area that he was flying in. The pilot ruled out satellites because they don't move in circles. Furthermore, Ben Hansen checked Elon Musk's Starlink satellite positions, and the last one that took place in visual of this area was August 11th and then the 19th, the night after the sighting. From his video, Ben provides another reason why what was witnessed was not merely satellites. And they do not fly and change position from looking 5 to 10,000 feet above your altitude to going in front of your plane and then back again. And definitely not a satellite activity that we're looking at here. A great point that Ben Hansen makes is that the pilot is filming with an iPhone, which don't perform well in very low light environments, which is the environment the pilot was in when he took the footage. This demonstrates that the lights are very bright from the object or objects, which is frankly fascinating. Ben also states that the flash pattern is not like anything conventional, which I have to agree, those flash patterns are rather bizarre. Let's take a look at a segment of one of the videos that the pilot took during his encounter.
Like 670 we started to move.
That's a really weird flashing pattern, and we're talking very high altitudes because remember, the pilot's plane is already at 47,000 feet, and whatever he's looking at is substantially higher than the plane itself. And I think that considering how fast the plane is traveling, that rules out any conventional drone. Those flashing lights don't even look like a satellite, and there's good reason to believe it's not a satellite based upon the totality of the testimony of the pilot. And the idea that it is merely something reflecting from within inside the cockpit doesn't add up if it's accurate that two other pilots from two other commercial planes saw weird lights in the same place as well at the same time and on the same night. So this is a very anomalous sighting. Yes, it's somewhat ambiguous in the sense that you don't see a structured craft or anything that detailed. But what you do see is weird flashing lights at very high altitude. And the pilot says it was trailing him for 15 minutes and doing all kinds of weird things during that duration. So this is an excellent mystery. And this is an ongoing story, as Ben Hansen has stated. He's going to pursue further information to get a better picture of what exactly this could have been. Ben explains that whatever was encountered that night, assuming they were solid craft, did not show up on radar, which means there's some type of signature management or something going on like that. I want to finish this video off with an excerpt from a Vice.com article titled, "Congress Admits UFOs Not Man-Made, Says Threats Increasing Exponentially. The new budget for America's intelligence service directs the Pentagon to focus its UFO investigation on those objects that it can't identify." After years of revelations about strange lights in the sky, first-hand reports from Navy pilots about UFOs, and governmental investigations, Congress seems to have admitted something startling in print. It doesn't believe all UFOs are man-made. Buried deep in a report that's an addendum to the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023, a budget that governs America's clandestine services, Congress made two startling claims. The first is that, quote-unquote, cross-domain transmedium threats to the United States national security are expanding exponentially. The second is that it wants to distinguish between UFOs that are human in origin and those that are not. Quote, temporary, non-attributed objects are those that are positively identified as man-made after analysis, will be passed to appropriate offices and should not be considered under the definition as unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena, the document states. Now, Congress claims that cross-domain transmedium threats are expanding exponentially. Now, this is interesting because well prior to this legislation draft getting worked on, Luis Elizondo has said that these incursions into highly restricted military airspace are increasing exponentially and have been for some time. I think that's one of the reasons he left the DOD, because he was startled by this increase in activity from UAP. And it has been persisting up until this very moment. Now, it has been stated in the past that the phenomena itself are the architects of the secrecy. And that, of course, in my opinion, makes tremendous sense, because it's as if the phenomena itself and the US government and other governments both are interested in keeping this secret. The US government, just as one government, could hold a press conference tomorrow morning and release smoking gun data proving the true nature of this phenomena, that it does not originate from human hands. Likewise, the phenomena could fly over a highly populated place tomorrow in a way that allows for sufficient documentation from hundreds of people's iPhones, and the cover-up would be over immediately. So that's weird. But the point I'm making is that if the phenomena is starting to escalate in being perceived, talked about, recorded, then maybe this is the way of the phenomena to speed up the timeline for disclosure. I'm not saying that's definite, I'm saying maybe. And what happened on August 18th with the pilot and the two other commercial planes that apparently saw the same thing, maybe that is merely a foreshadowing of much more to come. Maybe we will be seeing this uptick further and receiving more news stories about weird sightings by pilots and others, as if the phenomena might want to force the issue and give governments less options to cover it up. It's worth exploring as a potentiality, whether or not it's true. And so one could interpret from what's going on and what has been going on for the past 70 years is that the phenomena wants governments to disclose, as opposed to forcing the issue so that the governments now have to be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's real, since there was this mass sighting and you got all this video footage of it. It's just something to consider. But, you know, that's assuming that the sighting that happened on August 18th, which I showed you a video clip of, is stemming from non-human intelligence. We don't know what it's stemming from. It could be an experimental American Air Force property. And many would argue that's much more likely than non-human intelligence, and I guess that's true. but yet we still don't know what it is at that altitude, or why it would trail a pilot's plane for 15 minutes and be able to maneuver in the way that it did, which seems to be beyond known technology. I don't know. This sighting was just reported literally last night by Ben Hansen. He did an amazing job, and hopefully we'll get more information soon so that we can get a better handle on what exactly went down for 15 minutes at least with it appears to be multiple UAP trailing a commercial plane. Well, that's interesting. And now, since I assess that we are moving closer to disclosure, I've decided that in every future video, I'm going to say the following. The house of cards is falling, baby. Please do not forget to subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, you could check out my merch shop. You could become a patron. You could become a YouTube member. You could give me a one-time donation. All those potentials are in the description below. Or you could just slap a like on this bad boy, and I'll appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Special thanks to all patrons, YouTube members, those that have bought merch, those that have given me a one-time donation. I couldn't do without you. Thank you so much. See you in the next episode.